So I already told you about my pretty wild appearance on Timcast IRL. Now I want to talk about my appearance that came out the day after, but we recorded it a couple weeks before, on Tim Pool's Culture War show, okay? And this one was also pretty dang wild. Tim Pool was not at this one, but a few other right-wingers were, including Isabella Moody, of course, who co-hosts The Grudge. And what's so interesting about this, always when I appear in these spaces, I told you all that I was going to make an effort because we criticize Democrats for not meeting people where they are and showing up in the spaces and going on other people's platforms, that you know what? If they're not going to do it, I'll just do it. I'll show up. I don't care. Throw me in the lion's den and I'll talk with people. And you learn a lot. It can be upsetting. I will say the Timcast IRL one, as I reviewed, there were a lot of really upsetting elements of how that was structured and how it went. But it is also very interesting to learn what causes someone and how you can debate with someone who supports Trump. And the first few clips from this show how there's this disconnect between understanding broader research versus anecdotes. And what fuels a lot of MAGA narratives is the weaponization of anecdotes to distract from the data. A good example is, let's talk about individual crimes to scare people about crime, but not contextualize it with broader crime data that says we're getting safer and safer. And here on the subject of political violence, they just would not. All three, did it me versus 30 Trump supporters? None of them could get their head around. Now, I'm not saying that in an assaulting way, just they would not engage with the idea that maybe the anecdotes you're familiar with aren't representative of the broader data set on political violence and how it's just the case that right-wing political violence is more common when it's researched. Not provocative anecdotes, but the research. So while we watch this, please do click the subscribe button if you want to support this show, if you appreciate that I've been traveling and doing crazy stuff to make it on all these different shows to try to demonstrate what it looks like to appear in these spaces and places and debate people and then talk to people. Sometimes you make a lot of progress. Here, not so much.
If you were on the right, you were a pariah in society.
Yeah, okay.
And you see that in your comment section about me.
First off, political violence of any kind, if you're saying that someone attacks your car or something because there's a MAGA sticker, that's insane. They shouldn't do that. It is important to remember that the data show that right-wing political violence is far more
fake data.
Hold on, I want
political violence. Well, I'm just going to finish the point. She went for a while there. And then, you bring up January 6th. That's an instance of political violence. But what you need to understand about something I've explained to Isabel before is that to understand our political analysis of two different relevant prominent leaders, you have to at least limit it for some logical discussions to the leaders we're talking about, not vibes and abstract perceptions of an entire side. Because on any side, people will do crazy stuff.
But in the case of, look at the BLM riots for months. Like that's, in the case of, it's largely left-wing activists. Yeah, right. How come it's that
and
base?
Democrats believed that if you committed crimes, you should be held accountable for them.
That's not true.
Unlike
They were
Trump
bailing them
actually
out. Kamala
it's not true.
herself.
Yeah, it's not true. Unlike Trump actually wanting to pardon people who were violent on January 6th. But I will say,
They should, all of
in
them.
the case of Trump, I'm all for protecting free speech. Y'all will sometimes mix up social media censorship, which if you have a platform, you're on the platform and you have terms of service, we can debate about what those terms of service should be, but that's not the same as government infringement.
But the government did infringe,
right? And I'm just going to complete my point really quickly. We can address that.
It's already getting heated, not even 5 minutes in.
No. And then finally, I've never heard Vice President Harris advocate for censorship, whereas Trump literally said the government should come down hard on MSNBC. That's your leader of your movement, not just some random person out on social media.
Which I disagree with that, by the way.
Kamala Harris absolutely said that she was going to look into expropriating Twitter from Elon Musk because he had lost his privilege. These are her words. That's a direct quote. Lost his privilege to own because he was being. I guess the way that she phrased it was he wasn't doing enough to censor people. She literally said lost his privilege. There was that is a direct quote. Lost.
I'm going to pull it up.
Lost his privilege.
So then Lisa, maybe I have the clip here in a second, but ends up looking that up and admitting, even her admitting that that had been fact checked and that wasn't portrayed correctly by Phil here. So they'll distract with inaccurate anecdotes from the reality that Trump actually says that stuff. If you're upset about censorship, why don't you start with the guy who's the presidential candidate, now president-elect, about to be president, who's out there threatening media outlets? No, don't talk about that. Phil kept saying to me that I was obsessed with Trump whenever I'd bring up such a point. Oh my gosh, you keep talking about Trump. Yes, he's going to be the president and he's threatening media outlets. Yes, I'm obsessed. I think rationally so. But yes, I happen to get a little bit fixated when someone wants to use presidential power to break down a key tenet of our constitutional democratic republic, which is freedom of the press. Yes, I'm fixated. I'm obsessed. I can't stop talking about it. We go forward on this topic.
When a Democrat won.
So right-wing political violence, you can look it up, is more prevalent.
This is not true at all. This is not true.
It.
All of the riots that happened during 2020, those were not right-wing riots. Those were left-wing violence.
Correct.
The people that were murdered by leftists, that was not right-wing violence. Right. That was left-wing violence. The CEO that was just that was just murdered the other day in New York was not because of right-wing violence.
Okay, what about the people? Like, what about Steve Scalise getting shot? My boss was there that day.
Specifically said. Yeah, Steve Scalise, they specifically said this is for healthcare.
Okay. So do you notice? Those were all anecdotes! I'm not... Yes, you can study up and memorize a bunch of stories of left-wing political violence, and I hate those. And those are just as bad. If a left-winger murders someone for a left-wing reason because they're politically motivated towards the left, that's bad. And then it's bad for the right-wing reason. But that's separated. That's a different point. Then what is more common in the United States based on the data? The thing that y'all have a hard time getting your head around is the difference between these examples that get focused a lot on
availability
media and actual studies that study this to look
but the studies are like this. They're like, the studies are, okay, did this person ever say anything hateful about black people? And then all of a sudden he injures black people, then it's a hate crime. It's not the same.
Authorities go through a process to figure out what the motivation, obviously what the motive of a murder or an assault was. And if they have evidence that it was politically motivated, then it's classified that then we categorize and we learn that, left-wing violence is far less prevalent.
Do you have any examples? Do you have any examples of... Can you articulate what anyone means by right-wing violence? Like when you hear people, when you hear the argument or the statistics saying, it's right-wing violence, can you articulate what they mean by right-wing violence?
Motivated.
Not by violence. Can you articulate what the motivation was that falls under right-wing?
Yes, you're not going to like being associated with, for example, white supremacist attacks, right? I agree.
Well, how frequently are white supremacist attacks going on?
I'm assuming that's why you're bringing this up is because you're going to dispute.
Like them either.
Okay, listen if you're going to ask a question.
Sorry.
So I'm explaining that I agree. Whenever I start going through and explaining what the different instances of right-wing violence might be, it might be anti-government from a right-wing perspective. It might be racist-driven attacks. You're going to go, well, that's not right wing. That's just crazy. But the same thing happens on the left. If it's anything that's left of center as an ideology, they categorize as a left wing attack.
Do you think
it's like how I don't associate with people who looted during Black Lives Matter? You know what I mean?
Okay, well, here's a question though.
But that doesn't dispute at all what I'm saying.
Do you think that the riots that were happening during Black Lives Matter, do you think those count as
I said this in the first segment. I'm trying. You see, I'm trying. I'm not trying to do the thing that Tim was doing in that first one where you're just you're hungry for a clip, so you're shouting and you're not really listening. I really am trying to hear. Are you saying that because there are instances of left-wing political violence, that when we analyze all of the violence that is politically motivated and learn it's more commonly right-wing, that's not true because you have an instance of a left? And they kept asking, you're going to see, give me an example, give me an example, give me an example, give me an example, which on principle, I don't need to because it's not about the particular example. Because the reason I resisted bringing up a particular example is because of what you're about to see, which is whenever you do, then they get fixated on that one example and go, well, that wasn't that bad because of this or that or that. And it's, no. I'm not saying that I'm necessarily wanting to debate. For example, I have obviously brought up January 6th when they asked so many times for an example. And I'm not interested in hearing your whole monologue about how, January 6th, people were prosecuted too much or whatever. And so I'm trying to save you from having to debate the subject of that. And instead, let's keep it on what we're talking about, which is political violence at large. And if we look at it at large, we learn that it's more commonly right wing. That doesn't mean the left wing incidents aren't bad. Again, they are. And if they're the same magnitude of violence as a right wing, they're equally as bad. Catch this idea. Both bad, one more common. But it's the same thing with crimes. When you say, actually, crime is going down, they'll go, well, my cousin experienced this. Okay, that's terrible. I'm sorry. But that's not the same as data. Whew. As left-wing extremists who committed left-wing violence, which they will be, and that's still not as prevalent, not even close, to right-wing political
violence. My turn.
So, okay.
My turn.
That's not my opinion. I'm just talking about the research on this.
You're talking about research. I want you to name for me 3 instances that you can think of, 3 separate instances of right-wing political violence.
Okay.
3.
The Mark Kelly's wife.
Who's Mark Kelly?
The Arizona senator.
I mean, who that is.
Name. Yeah.
What happened to that?
And
then, that was when the shooting.
And then Paul Pelosi.
That was
January 6th. But
Paul Pelosi.
January 6th.
As a few examples.
Paul Pelosi
actually, let's
guy?
get to that because you think we're about to get into a whole January 6th thing. So, to be honest, in the moment, I was thinking, what are 3 instances that recently have come up? Those were the 3 that came to my mind. But if they're so obsessed with anecdotes, go look up right-wing militias and the violence they do. You can go find the examples yourself. I'm not making I don't inform myself on nationwide phenomena by looking at a social media video of one attack, right? That doesn't inform you well. I need, for such a statement like which one's more common, a broader data set, and we can study over decades which one has been more common. Doesn't mean right-wingers, you're necessarily wrong because of that one fact. Just, can we engage thoughtfully with it, though? I'm not swimming in the world of everything has to be an anecdote, but that really moves people. It's fascinating.
January.
As a few examples.
Actually,
let's get to that because you think you're being really smug about this. Do you understand why it's bad to try to block the peaceful transfer of power?
Time out.
Okay, no, hold on. I'm smug about this because
you don't care about maintaining the core process of democracy.
I don't know anything about what I care about, so I don't know where
Clearly,
you get off.
Your tone makes it very clear you don't care.
My tone comes from the fact that you continue bringing up January 6th over and over and over and over.
It's not just about that day. Would you like me to explain it to you?
Yes.
Whenever someone loses an election and doesn't have any overwhelming evidence or any evidence at all of outcome determinative voter fraud, and then justifies, and I can't wait for you to pull the thing that I know you're going to pull up because every person thinks they're going to dispute what I'm saying by pulling it up, and I'll say it doesn't at all refute it. But then you go through multiple allegedly illegal schemes that now he's not going to be prosecuted for because he's becoming president, but to block the peaceful transfer of power. Just forget January 6th for a second. The fake elector scheme that she wanted to talk about is an example of him trying to get unlawful people who did sign forms saying we're the lawful electors, and then he was pressuring Mike Pence to accept those as the real electors so that Trump could stay president despite losing the election.
You're going through the details about the January 6th, the things that led up to January 6th, the illegal actions that led up to January 6th, as opposed to the political violence. So you're bringing up the bad...
No, right. So when you talk, why do you keep bringing up January 6th? I'm explaining it's actually not just about the violence. The more consequential democratically thing
I have a question.
Is the illegal schemes or trying to get the Brad Raffensperger. Yes, this is what I want to talk about. Yeah,
she's about to intellectually commit right-wing violence.
How many? So you're having a problem with Democrats not admitting the election?
Okay, so then she pulls this up, and we'll get to that because this is really interesting. Phil's really upset that we're talking about this. Phil, you're the one who keeps saying it. And next time I'm on, please do it again. But if you say, why'd you bring up January 6th? You see what I'm saying? This is why I didn't want to go there, because it distracts from the point that you wanted to debate. You said you wanted to debate political violence. I'm saying, here's all the research. You're saying, but Black Lives Matter summer. And I was saying, okay, that's what we use as an example. This is what we use to put all the examples together and then analyze them. So I'm saying this is our argument so far, but you say I need examples on your end to think that you're valid. So I cite one of the most consequential examples of political violence in American history, which is January 6th, violently trying to block the peaceful transfer of power because the sitting president at the time literally lied to a bunch of people and got them to storm the Capitol. And then you go, oh, you're so obsessed with January 6th. You brought up the example thing, so I gave you an example. And that's a very valid example. But I don't even need to get onto the whole January 6th thing unless they wanted to, but clearly they wanted to, so then we go there. And then he gets upset at me for substantiating why I'm so obsessed with the attempts to block the peaceful transfer of power. Ah! I told you in the last segment about the Tim Pool appearances. I work really hard. One of the things that MAGA loves is saying, we owned a lib. Or no, not we owned. We triggered. There we go. We triggered a lib, right? So my goal is to make sure that my mood can't distract them from my words. So I try to stay really, really calm so that it's not about, oh, look, he looks triggered. It's just, listen to what I'm saying. It still won't work and they'll find a way to say it was all wrong. But at least I take away that variable of distraction, which is, oh, he got so upset. But that means I have to then process these outrageous experiences in front of all of you. So that's what you're saying.
You're having a problem with Democrats, not admitting the election. Like Hillary Clinton did say that the election was stolen. She always says
Russia collusion, Russia.
Illegitimate, right? And then we had actual members of Congress.
Just, do you want to explain it, or can I just explain to you now why that's not at all?
Why is it not the same?
I'm not bringing up, even though I think it was vile because they were doing it because of lies, I'm not bringing up the fact that senators objected or Congress people objected to the results. That actually is a power they have in Congress. I'm talking about fraudulent electors. The fact that distinction is not one that y'all understand.
So semantics. Semantics. What?
No,
you're saying you're saying it's okay for Democrats to object to election results.
First, let me explain the Electoral College to you. So you're talking about the certification of the electoral count.
Correct.
We got here because of political violence, not because of procedural stuff.
That's not what you're talking about. No. Which one would you like me to address?
We got here because of political violence, and you moved it to procedure.
Because you multiple times have taken shots about my fixation with January 6th, which I'm fixated, so that's why I want to talk about it. And to your point, you're talking about whenever members of Congress, which is a part of their constitutional authority, it's bad to wield that authority when you don't have a basis to, but they do have the ability to object to the electoral count.
Their constituents on January 6th were asking their representatives to do that. That's what that was.
Okay, and I haven't brought up once members of Congress objecting.
No, but why do you think the people were there? So the people were wanting their elected members to do that. They're asking them. That's why they're protesting.
So you're completely mixing up two completely different things altogether. Mm-mm. That is the electoral count being certified. I'm talking about a president getting people to assert themselves as the electors, the actual electors. Not let's dispute the certification of the election, but let's get illegal electors counted as the Electoral College. Please tell me that separation makes sense in your brain.
That makes sense, but
okay, that's what Trump tried to do.
That's not what he tried to do.
It is so overwhelmingly that he doesn't even deny it.
He's asking people. He said this was a fraudulent election, and
no, stop bringing up Congress. I'm
not saying that.
Individuals who've been prosecuted in certain states for being fraudulent electors, they literally signed forms saying, "You're making me crazy." That's how I feel the whole time. I don't feel like I ever make right wingers feel this way. I really don't. I've never had someone say, no, you're not even listening at all. You're missing completely what I'm saying. Because I actually am trying to hear what they're saying, and then I'll address it. But it seems like my words are coming at them, and they're going, boom, boom, but still wanting to respond. But you didn't hear what I said, so why would you respond if you don't hear what I say? Also, 3v1, so fun. I want to do this more because it's so stimulating, because sometimes if I have a partner or it's 2v2 or it's 1v1, but definitely if I have a partner, it feels like it takes a while to get around to my turn, but with this, I can really hear what each of them are saying and then get to go around and talk and address all the different things and not feel beholden to what someone else is going to say. And that feels great. I am the dutifully elected elector from the state of Wisconsin.
And he asked people to do that. That's what you're saying.
He got them.
Where's the evidence of that?
And then what do you think he wanted Mike Pence to do? What do you think he wanted Mike Pence to do?
He wanted Mike Pence to do what
2 indictments. That's where the evidence is.
He wants him to assert his power like Congress and not certify the election.
He wanted Mike Pence
has the ability to
say
do that.
He was counting the non-electors that weren't lawfully sent by the states.
Let me say,
random people.
Do you know how many?
It's crazy y'all are okay with that. Imagine that's what Biden started doing.
Wait a minute. Were you okay?
Understand?
Wait a minute.
Is that crazy?
I'm fascinated by the fact that this conversation has turned to January 6th.
Wait,
you asked me. You asked me for an example. So I gave you one. And then you said I was too obsessed with the example. So I explained why it's justified to be. That's how we got there. Now I can't see my computer.
Are you okay
I will talk about this every time until y'all admit trying to block the peaceful transfer of power is bad.
You will drive the conversation to this.
Up the wall
because yes, I will. One particular thing that we were talking about political violence, and now we've trained from political violence that on the left versus the right to procedure about January 6th.
Yeah, procedure. Oh, okay. Let's all take a breath together. First,
you cannot change you're trying to deflect the fact that you went from, we were talking about violence, and you changed the subject. You are the
one who brought up January 6th when I alluded to that violence.
You're the one that brought up January 6th because she asked you for 3 options, and one of them was January 6th, and so we started talking about the violence on January 6th, and then you said, well, no, let's talk about the illegal actions of President Trump.
Yeah.
All right, wait. Time out.
That's changing the subject from political violence.
I said, "Do you want to?" I said,
"Procedure that was." I'm gonna.
You know why though? Because you went. All you can think about January 6th. Sorry, I don't want to do your voice. That's silly. And I went and I was.
He has to do that because we know that the left wing political violence is way more prevalent than right wing.
That's why I stopped talking.
No
research have a peaceful transition of conversation to move on from that fact.
I know you were looking up earlier. Can you show them the research on political violence? Because y'all keep really having a difficult.
I want to see how they determine it. Anyway,
the 2 things that he mentioned before. Hold on a second.
But we can name 30. You can barely name 3.
Hold on.
Anyway.
I don't care about the anecdotes. I care about the.
Hold on. Hey, hold on. The 3 things that he mentioned, right? So there was the Mark Kelly's wife. I forget what her name was. Where she was shot. Right. And then there was
Paul Pelosi.
The second, Paul Pelosi.
Yep.
Both of those people. They were as much as he's going to say they were politically motivated. It's likely that they were not politically motivated in the same way.
Are you actually kidding me?
In the same. Stop.
The guy literally said, "I need to make Nancy Pelosi answer for the stolen election." He literally said that.
Stop.
Where do you think that comes from?
Gay lover.
Paul Pelosi.
Okay, so now he makes the case. The guy said he's going to make Nancy Pelosi answer for the stolen election. What's political violence if not that? Tell me. Stop and tell me. I think it goes on, but oh my goodness. Let me just see here for a second. Everyone just pause, hold your horses, and let's see if it's worth the time to I think this one's interesting. We have a little bit more time. This is me trying to address how the right weaponizes culture wars, right? Are there nuanced discussions to be had about these culture wars? Yes, of course. But we ought to be mindful of when they're using them to distract from their own more systemic and consequential policy failures. So one of the things that happens, I think the best friend of MAGA is like the super uber, I don't know what you would call them, like the extreme end of the left, okay? Because they provide these nice semi-attached to reality, but kind of straw men people that y'all can engage with. And what I mean is, it's not that these things aren't a thing. Like I talked about the bathroom thing, I think Nancy Mace is being psychotic with her obsession over one trans member of Congress where she goes to the restroom. She wasn't going to go to that restroom anyways, but I know these things exist, and I'm happy to talk about them as sort of cultural issues and social media discussions, but I don't think they exist in the way they impact people's lives, like the policy issues I'm focused on most of the time, and the policy issues that most prominent Democrats are focused on, like politicians. What Republicans often do is like, if the Republican line, Trump wants to come in and give big tax cuts, his last one's disproportionately benefited wealthy folks, and then he wants to do these tariffs that will spike prices. And if he actually was really clear and transparent about what he wants to do, then I don't think people would vote for Republicans as much because their economic agenda is trash. They have a worse economic record over the last century. But instead, it has to be, don't look at that. Look at all of these other niche cultural issues, like a trans person you're probably never going to notice yourself interacting with.
All right, but it's my turn.
And then so that's a big part of this. I wish y'all would engage with what Kamala Harris was actually running on. You can go look at all of her speeches. It wasn't about trans bathrooms.
She literally said multiple times that she would provide money for trans prisoners to get it changed.
Okay.
So that is something that
there it is again. You're doing it again. You found a clip that wasn't from her presidential campaign. That was. It might have been from like her one way.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. She said it.
That was a Trump administration era policy that he was abiding by as well. But my point is, just listen for a second.
It's my turn.
That's what y'all do instead of engaging with her actual policy proposals, which were mostly economic ones to bring down prices, enhance child tax credit, small business related tax breaks. That's what she was running on a pro-freedom platform. And that's what I resonated with. And what y'all will do is only engage with like the online wokesters instead of engaging with the fact that Democrats really do have a better economic agenda than Republicans, which I'll argue until I'm blue in the face.
Time out. Okay, so it's my turn, right?
Does that make sense at all to you? Does the argument like...
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
I strongly believe that you'll argue every Democrat point until.
Okay, wait. I won't. I will not. So I just want to let you know.
I'll criticize it. I already have.
You say we don't push back. I actually made a post that the bathroom thing with Nancy Mace was absolutely irrelevant because every member has their own bathroom. Everybody, and I wrote it. I wrote a thing.
Yeah, and credit to Lisa on that. And then it goes from there. But that little chunk of what I said, a rare moment where, to the credit, they really let me flesh that out before responding. And it's an important point. It's not that those issues don't matter. And you've seen when the trans bathroom thing came up, I was very outspoken about how crazy Nancy Mace was being, trying to ban one member of Congress, Sarah McBride, from women's bathrooms. And it should be pushed back against, but it also, a part of the pushback has to be, hey, Trump voters, you notice how you were not thinking about that issue until Nancy Mace started telling you to think about it? You never notice how you don't think about something until Fox News tells you to? Whereas there are a lot of things that Harris actually was spending a lot of time talking about, and those were related to the very economic and otherwise well-being of people, and that gets abstracted and distracted from by these issues. They matter in the people's lives that they impact, and that's why we still talk about them, and we can be nuanced and rational on them, but they don't impact as many people as the ones that Republicans desperately don't want to talk about. Tell me your thoughts about this. What an appearance. And I will be going on more shows, as difficult as sometimes, or as exhausting as sometimes it can be, just to get the word out. We can't stay in our bubbles, so I'm popping people's bubbles and I'm jumping in. And if you want to support that, you can do so by clicking the join button below.